Coming up on COS Now, it's been a monumental week for the Convention of States movement. South Dakota scores the first chamber victory of the year, while Wyoming and Montana make impressive strides in their legislative efforts. Plus, COS senior advisors Michael Farris and Rick Santorum are making waves across the states, while key COS endorsers, including Marco Rubio and Pete Hegseth, step into major roles in the new administration. And we'll cover the latest headlines, citizen activity, and even a new Article 5 report that's got everyone talking. All that and more on COS Now.
What do we want? When do we want it? Now!
Hey everybody, I'm your host Rachel Martin, and this is COS Now, where we bring you all the latest news regarding the Convention of States movement. If any of you guys are new here, just know that we post every single day across all of our social media platforms. So be sure to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and ring that notification bell so you never miss any upcoming content that we have for you guys. This past week was jam-packed with legislative activity, so let's jump right into it. Tuesday was an exciting day for the Convention of States movement. The South Dakota Senate passed our resolution with a 23-9 vote, our first chamber victory of the year. A special shout out goes to our prime sponsor, Senator Jim Melhoff, for his incredible leadership.
So I think it's time that we use Article 5, which is a provision that was put in the Constitution by the framers to give the states an opportunity to bring the federal government to heel. And I think it's well past time that happened.
Senator Chris Carr was among those who spoke in favor.
And the reason I support the Article 5 is it's doing something at a time when I think something needs to be done. At a time when the federal government hasn't self-corrected. It's time to do something about this deficit, about balancing our budget, and about term limits.
Our resolution is now pending before the South Dakota House for final passage. Could South Dakota become state number 20 to join the movement? Well, the state of Wyoming might have something to say about that. On Thursday morning, the Wyoming Senate Judiciary Committee heard public testimony on COS. Here's the state director for COS Wyoming, Julie Baker, testifying remotely.
Because you normally get supportive emails only from your district, you may not know that there are thousands of supporters in Wyoming, over 13,000. They've demonstrated their support by signing the Convention of States petition, and in fact, Wyoming has the second highest number of petition signers in the country per capita. Each time we speak with someone who has just signed the petition, they're stunned that Wyoming wasn't the first state to pass the Convention of States resolution. It's so obvious to them that we should do this.
The committee voted unanimously to advance our resolution to the Senate floor by a vote of 5-0. And that's not all with the legislative news. On Friday, the Montana House Business and Labor Committee also held a public hearing on Convention of States. The Montana team packed the room to give passionate testimony in favor of our resolution. The committee is expected to take a vote sometime this week. A victory there would bring our resolution to the Montana House for debate. While he was in Montana, COS senior advisor Michael Farris appeared on Montana Majority's podcast with Tom McGilvray, a Montana state senator.
You know, some people might say, why don't you just have Congress do this? They have that power to propose amendments. What's your take on that? Just have Congress pass a fiscal restraint amendment of some sort?
I'd love it if they do it. They won't do it.
Yeah.
And the reason they won't do it is human nature. They will never restrict their own power. You just can't get, and because it's 2/3 majority in both houses, there's occasional winds that would blow through. You might get a simple majority on one of those ideas. You can't get a 2/3 majority. It just will not happen.
Meanwhile, in Wyoming, Rick Santorum, who serves as COS Action's other senior advisor, was given the honor of addressing the state Senate.
I've been very engaged in politics now for almost the past 35 years, and at the national level. And I'm not in Washington today to try to fix the problems. I'm here because I've decided that that's really not going to be where the problems are going to be solved in this country. They're going to be solved here.
Our resolution is pending action before the Wyoming legislature. Other states where COS is now active this year include Kansas, Minnesota, Nevada, New Hampshire, New Jersey, and Rhode Island, with several more expected to be in the mix. With a unanimous vote last week, Marco Rubio was the first COS endorser to be confirmed as a member in the presidential cabinet.
There's a couple things we need in this country. We need term limits, and we need a balanced budget amendment, and Congress is never going to do that for us. That's why I support an Article 5 Convention of the States.
And after thousands of you contacted your U.S. senators, COS champion Pete Hegseth was also confirmed to be the nation's Secretary of Defense. The decisive vote was cast by another COS supporter, Vice President J.D. Vance. Please encourage your U.S. senator to confirm other endorsers of COS, including Brooke Rollins for Secretary of Agriculture and Mike Huckabee for Ambassador to Israel. And that brings us to the final 5 highlights. Article 5 scholar Robert G. Nadelson has published a report unveiling more evidence that the founding generation referred to the Article 5 convention process as a convention of states. You can read more at conventionofstates.com/blog. The Colorado team published a report on their recent Capitol Day in which they visited all 100 legislative offices. The leftist Daily Kos published a hit piece against COS action, a clear sign that we're above the target. COS continues to grab headlines in local publications, including these stories in Nebraska, Wyoming, South Dakota, and Michigan. Here are some recent photo submissions showing citizen activity at COS events across the country, including Indiana, Nebraska, Ohio, Wyoming, South Dakota, and Pennsylvania. And that's all I have for today's recap, you guys. Leave your thoughts in the comments down below, and I'll see you same time next week here on COS Now.